these things on, it slows your render time down, but it's going to give you a lot better results. So like I said, that's just with your default settings on. But those are located. Let me run through the process again, because anytime you're rendering anything at max with mental rate, you're going to want to use these things for your final renders. And it's under indirect illumination. The very first one is enable final gather. You want to turn that on, and you want to go down to global illumination and enable global illumination. If we turn off global illumination, let me clone this. I'm going to show you the difference. There's probably not going to be a lot of difference. Most of it's probably going to be in our actual shadow. But let's go ahead and do this just as a test to see. Now this is with final gather on, global illumination off. As you can see, the shadows are a lot darker. Actually, not a lot. It's pretty subtle. But for example, right in here, compared to right in here, and especially right underneath the sphere here, see how much darker this is? The reason for that is it's the, sorry, here, scroll down here. When you turn on final gather, it calculates anywhere that's in shadow to have a little bit extra light, like a corner of a room. Where in a 3D render, it's going to be black, but in the real world, it's actually going to have some light. There's light bouncing off of objects. That's what the final gather does. Global illumination, it's the same type of a scenario, but it actually calculates that even more to a level of giving you where there's no light touching it whatsoever. It's still going to give you a little bit of a brightness to it. So it's basically another level of that, and you can see that this is still pretty realistic, but this one obviously looks a little bit even more realistic, and you'll notice that most definitely right along the hard shadows of objects. So that's with it turned off. And the render time, we can't really do tests on render time with this scene because it's actually really fast, but you're going to want to use them both for your final renders because it's going to give you a lot better results. And all these settings in here, that's where you're going to really start seeing adjustments in your render times. So that's why you want to start off keeping all of this stuff default. And there's a lot of locations a lot of places on the web and a lot of books that have good information on this. The one that I recommended from the bat, right off the bat, was rendering in mental array using Max, Maya, and XSI. And that's one of the best books that really covers everything setting-wise. And it's a great one to look through for in their indirect illumination chapters. They cover everything in here, and it tells you what different settings do what. And I'm gonna focus on that we're gonna do a workshop that does the actual final renders, and I'm gonna focus on that and explain as much of it as I can. But there are a lot of settings here, and personally, I mean, I understand it and I know it, but I don't know every single setting that there is to adjust. I really don't, and I don't know anyone actually that does. I always have to look at reference for certain ones. If there's a problem I'm having and it's not working with the settings I do know how to adjust, I still have to look it up and I'll find a new setting that I've never adjusted before that really makes a difference. And that's the thing about it. I mean, you have a lot of control, which is great, but also can be, you know, kind of a pain in the ass because there's so many different settings. But yeah, I mean, that's the results of just turning that on. It really makes a big difference. And we're already at 2 o'clock. The demo that I'm going to do first is for faking the sun system, and you're going to use your global illumination and final gather just like this, but have more control over your actual lighting. And obviously I don't have time to do it right now, but I just want to explain quickly what it's going to be. And it's by using directional lights to fake it and using a background. And so what I'm going to do is actually give you guys kind of a precursor to it. And I'm trying to think if, you know, I'll just do it Friday. I mean, this is going to be the last class, and I've got a project that's going on at work right now, so I'm kind of busy. But this Friday, I'm going to do a demo on this lighting scenario. Be the same time, but it's probably not going to be a full hour. But I just kind of want to give you guys a feel for it and see how that works out for the workshop. So we'll schedule a class Friday, and you're welcome. Everybody's welcome to come to it. Same time, 1 o'clock, and it'll just be specifically a demo on faking this lighting. And it's, like I said, probably not going to take a full hour, but it's however long it takes is how long it's going to take. But basically, to give you guys a background on what we're going to be doing, open this up. This is this is the image I was saying of these guys, right? For some reason, I think these things are hilarious. But we're going to use this image where the reason why I picked this one is that you can really see where the light's coming from. Like you can see from his head, the shadows. It's tough to find good background images that have that kind of lighting that's direct, and that's what we want to kind of fake in the demo. And what you're going to want to do is find a background on your own if you want, or I mean, we're going to use this one for the demo, but we're basically going to take this and we're going to trace. We're going to do what's called basically a manual ray trace. So we're going to just figure out exactly where the sun's coming from. And there's a line tool in here. I believe it's, where is the line? Paintbrush. It's our line tool. Pen tool, that'll work. We want to trace, actually we need a brush. We're going to basically trace the direction of the light. Take this down, and this is just for reference. So close our navigator, create a layer, and you want to take a point and trace where its shadow comes from. So for example, like this, we're going to say if the light's coming from this direction, right there to that shadow. And we're going to do this throughout the whole image just to get an idea of where the light's coming from. You can basically tell the light's coming from right here, and it's coming this direction, right? And actually, as this is, it's more this way than completely flat. So it's up here, but you can't really show that in 2 dimensions. So you want to figure out where the sun's coming from. And hold on, actually, I see that there's another question here really quick. Let me see. Can I write the name of the book on the screen so I can copy down? Yes, I'll do that as well. But this is what we're going to do. And this is how you set it up. Is you figure, okay, that's our sun. And we're going to figure what the color is. We're going to use a basic sky color and figure that it's yellow, but with that bluish tint to it. We're going to look at our shadows, decide, okay, this is our sun direction. We're going to create a directional light for that. And where the trick comes in is we're going to figure, okay, well, every other object in the scene, we're going to create a directional light for that. So the first one's going to be our sun at an intensity of 1. Then we're going to create another one, and we're going to create another layer here, and this is just all for reference. But the next one would be for, and actually, let's go grab. You can also, one thing that's really cool about Photoshop, when you're selecting these, you can use an image to grab a color. So like for this background, I'm just clicking wherever I want, and you'll get, see, there's a shirt. You can grab things, and that grabs your color swatch. But we're going to use the ground as our next one. And so all this light that comes down, it's going this direction. Well, it's also bouncing off the ground, and it's going this direction, right? So we're going to create that as well. And it's really difficult for me to draw, by the way, just so you guys know. With a mouse, draw straight lines. I usually use a Wacom tablet, so you'll see my lines are very, very crappy. But anyway, so that's our next bounce, is from the ground up. There's also going to be the same from here, this direction. So we're going to basically be creating a bunch of directional lights in here in the scene from every object that light bounces off of. And they're all going to be the color of the object they bounce off of, and they're all going to decrease in intensity. And so it's going to give us the same kind of results as a global illumination, but then we're going to use global illumination and final gather on it, and it's going to give us really great results. And the reason you do that is if you want to have an object that you're going to composite into the scene, and the lighting is going to match up. It's actually a visual effects trick, but we're basically doing visual effects by creating architectural renders to composite into a live action background, so it's the same process. So this is a good way to fake stuff. It actually makes the render times a little slower because you're just using directional lights. But that's how we're going to do it. I know this just looks like chaos, but I'm sure you kind of get an understanding of what I mean here. And then we're going to bring that into Max as a background, and we're going to create our lights from that. Let's do this here, show background, and wireframe. And we're going to bring that into Max, and then we're going to, see that this is that problem I was telling you where it's going crazy. We're going to grab an object, and then it'll use that as its focus for rotation. And we're going to create a ground plane. We're going to match this up. And actually for this ground plane, the problem is there's not enough length and width segments, so you can change this to do 12. And 12, you get an idea of matching the ground plane up. And what we're basically going to be doing is just putting like the sphere, for example, in this scene. So we're going to match up the ground plane, get that matched up, do our fake lighting here. Let's kill these things, just use a sphere. And I'm going to show you this whole process of that. And obviously our shadow is going to be completely backwards here for right now, but I want to show you guys the process that we're going to be doing. We're going to use a material called, let's go into here, get material, new. It is called Matte